Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop, deep dive astrology coaching. How's everyone doing? It's 7 p.m. Eastern time, and today is the last Saturday, the last Saturday in August 2025, and it's almost September. So, good evening. Yes, #1 fan. That's great. So we'll wait a couple minutes to see if anyone else comes in. And I did put a question up there. You could see it in the chat box. What is your level of astrology knowledge? And I haven't done that in a while, so I would love to get more feedback from people in terms of where people are at with astrology. Where were you if you've been following my channel for a while? Where were you when you first started my channel, first started following, and where are you now? And are there any changes there? Sort of thing. But the interesting thing about whatever level of astrology you're at is you could be very, very strong in some areas of astrology and weaker in others, as am I. I'm not strong in every area of astrology, nor in every branch of astrology. So most astrologers have their niche. You know, they have their little thing, and they have two or three strong areas or techniques that they use in their practice in astrology for charts, readings, to get information and to try to help people and extract the best out of the signs and energies. So it's 7 p.m. Eastern time. Welcome, Jeff with Astroscoop. For anyone that just popped in. Oh, wow, people are prompt. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being prompt. I was almost late because I was having some technical difficulties. What a surprise. So I think I'm going to need to look at Mercury in my chart, but I think I'm going to need to hire a computer tech person to come to my house, look at my internet, look at my connections. I'm pretty well versed on tech. I'm not an expert, but I'm not a beginner with technology. But I think I need someone to come here and check out all the details. Maybe I need a Virgo. That's probably what I need, is a Virgo. Well, thank you so much for being on time. Don't forget, if you sign in using your Google or YouTube account, please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching the video but you don't click subscribe, you won't get notified of my videos and my live streams. And so sign in and click all or personalized. I do personalized for pretty much all my subscriptions. I follow all sorts of astrology people, tarot people, musicians, technology people, and I usually do personalized. And then it's great because I'll just refresh my browser or my phone, refresh the app, come back in, and then it will give you different recommendations based on what you watch. And it won't notify you of every single video that I or someone else has, which is, I find, very helpful. So last week we started Virgo. We talked about true Virgo 1, the first decan. And tonight we're going to talk about Virgo 2, which is September 3rd to the 10th or 11th. So today and tomorrow being the last days of August, we are in the Virgo 1 period. So if you're having a birthday or you know anyone born this weekend, they are definitely true Virgo, pure Virgo, Mercury times 2. So all Mercury ruler and Mercury co-ruled for this week. And it's obviously the most early degrees of Virgo, usually under 10. But tonight will be 10 to 20 or 21 degrees, second decan. Some books have that a little off. Some have it like 12 to 20 or 11 to 21, but it's basically right around there. So Virgo 2, tonight, all Virgos are ruled by Mercury. And I was having a little trouble coming up with today's material and next week's for Virgo 3. So I watched a couple Virgo videos a couple astrology women Virgo videos, and a couple tarot card readings for Virgo people. And I wanted to kind of see if anything sparked. And I wonder if other astrologers or tarot people feel like this when they try to sense or read Virgo or charts that contain Virgo energy. And so I have in my birth chart, I have my node in Virgo. So, one of my nodes, and then so your nodes are always opposed to each other. So Virgo is opposing Pisces. So in my chart, it's a Pisces Virgo with a dragon's tail and the other node. So it basically, with the nodes, it would basically mean that in a previous life, I engaged in a lot of Virgo type behavior, and not so much always in the positive way of being either rigid or having certain building block belief systems. Like I talked about building blocks with Virgo last week, which was the theme. And so I have Virgo as a node, which would indicate my lesson is to leave that node behind. I've already done that. And then to come into this life using my Pisces node and to be more Pisces-like. So so that's all my Virgo. And then I have an outer planet in Virgo, but I have no major Virgo, Virgo rising, or 10th house, etc. So for anyone that has major Virgo, especially in the middle degrees, you're dealing with Virgo too. So the difference here, as opposed to last week, is you're dealing with Mercury-ruled Virgos that are also co-ruled by Saturn. So I've known several people. The funny thing is, I've known four different people born on September 7th at different areas in my life that played sort of major roles in my daily routine, which is interesting because Virgo is the sign of routine. Virgo is kind of the sign of daily routine, and Virgos like routines for the most part. But I've known many September 7th. I've also known September 9th, 10th, 6th. So I've actually gotten to meet or read for a lot of Virgo 2 people, much more than Virgo 1s. As I mentioned last week, I had kind of trouble. But I was having trouble coming up with this material and trying to sense what I wanted to talk about with the essence of Virgo. And I think that tells me a couple things. Either because I don't have major Virgo, or I did with my node in a past life, that this time around, I'm not embracing the Virgo energy because I don't have any major planets in Virgo. So someone else, and I know many people that do have major Virgo in their chart, are bringing that Virgo energy into this lifetime to refine, correct, and help. Refine, correct, and help. Those are basically the Virgo modes. Refine something, correct something, and help. Serve as well. Refine, correct, help, and serve. And so wherever Virgo is in your chart, and I'm talking about major placements or rising, of course, we all have Virgo on a house cusp somewhere, but I'm talking about major Virgo, especially in the middle degrees, because you're dealing with the Mercury and the Saturn. I think part of the reason why I was having trouble tuning into the Virgo energy is because Virgo is the one sign out of the zodiac. It's probably the only sign that is the most, it's the most kind of puzzling sign to me, even more so than Scorpio. Scorpios are incredibly mysterious and sometimes hard to figure out. But the essence of Scorpio and the Scorpio nature, I think most people know or feel what Scorpio is about when you're with a major Scorpio person, Scorpio stellium person, Scorpio rising person, Mars in Scorpio. You feel it. You feel that Scorpio energy from that person, even if he or she isn't using any energy to express that. With Virgo, and any of you that have major Virgo or know a major Virgo will know this, Virgo is puzzling to me, because there's this reserve of energy, like all the earth signs are reserved. But the difference, what sets Virgo apart from Taurus and Capricorn, is the mutability, the quality of mutable, being adaptable, malleable, changeable. And yet, so Virgo's changeable, but they're so practical. Gemini is changeable, but Gemini has no need to always be practical. That's not Gemini's main thing. Gemini wants to use that Mercury in an air sign way. But Virgos are changeable and can even be flighty in their own way. Virgo can kind of be flighty, but yet Virgo is so practical. So I think they're at odds with themselves sometimes, and they're struggling to integrate these sides. So when you have Mercury and Saturn as co-rulers, or I'm sorry, Saturn is the co-ruler, you have a Mercury individual, which is a critical individual, an individual that likes to refine and correct. But now you have a smidge of Saturn or Capricorn energy in it. Now, what I've noticed about people born this week with the Saturn co-ruler is they have a killer, and I mean killer, sense of humor. But, and you'll see reels on Instagram and X, there's a lot of women especially talking about Virgos right now, Virgo males. Virgos are naturally humorous, which is so interesting to me, because Virgos have a special knack and gift for wit and humor, but not in the way that Gemini uses it. It's more practical. It's this observational, every man or every woman vibe. The Virgo person is the everyday person. It's the every woman. It's the every man. That's why I think that Virgos are hard to figure out, or they're puzzling, because Virgos can be amazing at what they do. They could be at top of their game in a field, Michael Jackson, and yet be incredibly insecure, incredibly aware of their own imperfections and shortcomings, and have terrible self-esteem, even if they're at the top level of their field, hobby, interest, school, whatever it is. Because Virgo 2s are sharp, really, really sharp. There is a sharpness. And so that's where the humor comes in. That's what I've noticed. So these Virgos can be cold on the outside. Virgos, for the most part, at least to me, have a cold exterior. And this is especially true for Virgo rising people. But they're usually so darn polite. And they can be, in a very quiet way, very charming and likable. So that's why Virgo is so puzzling, because there's this kind of cold exterior of like, well, don't get too close to me. I don't really do emotions too well. But yet underneath, Virgos are sensitive. It's just like Capricorn. Underneath the earth, all the earth signs, underneath, you got some warm, sensitive energy there. You got the earth energy, the salt of the earth energy. But you feel the quiet right now as we've gone from Leo into Virgo. The sun is still strong. It's still hot in certain areas. It's still very green and vibrant, but there isn't that. Remember how I said Leo cannot camouflage themselves? Well, guess who can camouflage themselves well? Virgos. Virgos wear many disguises. Now, you could posit that, is that on purpose? Is that to throw people off, to keep people guessing? Is that to protect themselves because they have a fragile self-esteem and they are sensitive underneath? Michael Jackson. Do they use humor and goofiness to hide their insecurities? Adam Sandler. Are they incredibly skillful and sharp and pointed, and they have a particular set of skills that are amazing and often blow away the other 11 signs, but you would never know it because they're an everyday person, or they act like an everyday person? Keanu Reeves. So you see, Virgos are hard to figure out. And what I need to do is I need to talk to more Virgos, because Virgos you know, it goes way deeper than just being a Virgo, obviously. We would have to look at Mercury in a Virgo's chart. If a Virgo person born this week has Mercury in Leo, then that would be extremely different. Last week I talked about Barry Gibb being a Virgo, and the Bee Gees, but yet he has a Leo Mercury, much different for expression. So if a Virgo 2 has a Leo Mercury or a Libra Mercury, there will be more gregariousness, there will be a little more of a social bent, and there will be a little less camouflage with their expression. But Saturn is armor. Saturn's serious, it's lessons, but it also contributes to a dark, sarcastic sense of humor. So anyone, if you've known a Virgo this week, you'll know how gifted they are naturally. Even if they're not in comedy, they are funny. They are just naturally funny, either by accident or on purpose. And they like to giggle, they like to goof, they have a little quiet, especially the women, have a little quiet, charming kind of giggle about them. They are Virgo 2s can be very likable, but they are very tough with demands. And they're very tough on you as far as what they want out of you. I had a Virgo woman once that I knew, and she was divorced. And I said, oh, she was a medical professional that I was going to. And I said, can I ask your ex-husband's sign? She said, sure. He was a Virgo. And I said, can I ask your sign? And she said, sure, I'm a Virgo. So I said, oh, wow, you're a Virgo, married to a Virgo. I said, were you guys born in the same week? She said, yeah. She said, I'm the 7th, and I think he was the 5th. So there were 2 Virgo 2s married. So I said, well, how did that go? Because she knew a good deal about astrology. She said, when it was good, it was great. And we were very much in sync with goals. We were health conscious, cleanliness. We were good at our jobs. That was all very compatible. And I said, well, what went wrong? And she said, everything else. We both had trouble expressing our emotions to each other and sharing. We both had trouble putting our guards down, even after many years of being together. I would put my guard down and then he couldn't, or he could put his guard down and then she couldn't. So she was explaining to me this Virgo marriage on how hard it was for she and her husband. And they were also both very critical of each other and very demanding. So they both kind of put each other these demands that they had to live up to. So it's interesting that I had that real life case experience of this woman I read for, and that she talked about her ex-husband being a Virgo. And she said, he has a lot of great qualities. And she said, I know I have great qualities as a Virgo, but it was either too much or too little together. And that's an interesting thing about Virgo is Virgos will surprise everybody because, as you know, Virgos are analytical and critical and have an amazing work ethic. Like Virgos can run rings around a lot of the other signs in terms of work, and they'll do it in this quiet way that you'll never even see coming. Then all of a sudden they'll blow up and they'll be famous, or they'll go from 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to 5,000. And I've seen Virgos do that. And you're like, whoa, don't underestimate this person. So, it's like Michael Jackson was incredibly painfully shy in person, but on stage he was king. And again, because he had that hard work ethic. Freddie Mercury was also sort of awkward and shy in real life. But one of the biggest front people of Queen, probably the best singer of all time in any genre of music. He's all often number one, because of his pop, rock, and operatic vocal skills. But when I think of Virgo, I think of, wow, I really want to talk to this Virgo because I want to know what they do well, because they all do something well. I also knew a Virgo woman once this week that I dated a long time ago, and she was a computer whiz. She didn't go to school for computers. And she didn't even take computer classes or anything. It was all self-taught, and she just naturally picked it up. And she could take her computer apart and install drives and then put it back together. And she would get incredibly frustrated because it wasn't perfect. It was really funny. But I always like to talk to Virgo people, especially Virgo 2s, because they always do something really, really well. I know another Virgo. I know Virgo guy born this week. He's a computer software engineer, and he is so shy and so self-effacing. You would never know how smart he is, but he is incredibly sharp and very hardworking. And, you know, the things he knows, whoa. But, you know, he doesn't brag about it. It's just his job, just his thing. So this is really the interesting thing of combining Mercury and Saturn for co-ruler for Virgo 2s. So I mentioned Freddie Mercury. There's also Michael Keaton, the actor who played Batman and did many comedic and dramatic roles in TV and film. He did Mr. Mom, which is really funny. Again, Virgos have a great, there's so many actors, actresses, mostly actors, male. There's so many actors and comedic people that have Sun, Venus. I noticed Sun, Venus, or rising in Virgo. There's so many. Now, probably I should do a video on that with some of my stats. It's just amazing how many, and in addition to the sun as well. So I think Virgo, especially Virgo 2s, have really good timing. Timing also comes with Saturn. Saturn is cycles. So a little Saturn or Capricorn influence, that helps Mercury to time well. So timing. So what I'm getting at with Virgo here, with Virgo 2, is more than any other sign, and this is one of the sharpest weeks in the zodiac of all 52 weeks. This is one of the sharpest, some of the sharpest people you'll meet. They won't seem like that, though. They're very disarming, and they can also fool you, especially if they want to. If they're a hacker or a con artist, they could fool you into playing. They know how to play it dumb. They know how to play it low. There's no one like Virgo that knows how to do it low key. Virgos are very low key. So that could be pro or con, depending on how you look at it. But Michael Keaton, amazing actor, very underrated, did Batman really well. These are technical Virgos. It doesn't matter if they're a high school dropout or they only went to a little, community college or something. Maybe they got a certificate in something. You'll know if you find any Virgo this week, you'll know they'll have some kind of technical gifts, either with software, computers, phones, something. And they can be creative, like a Pisces. They can be creative. They're very smart and witty, but they tend to like the more practical, kind of scientific part of a business or a process more than the creative, emotional, more the emotional part, like Pisces. They like the more scientific, technical. So demands, Virgo 2s are very demanding of other people and of themselves. But the trouble, the struggle that Virgo 2s have is that they place demands on other people that sometimes they cannot receive from the people that they placed it on. So if they're placing it on this person, and person A brings it back to the Virgo 2 and says, hey, this is my demand on you. Virgo 2s do not do good with pressure. They don't like pressure. Most Virgo people in general and Virgo planets do not like pressure. And it's different than Taurus. Taurus doesn't like to be rushed, but Taurus has a certain strength that can kind of push back at you a little bit, but not Virgo. Now, it doesn't mean Virgo isn't strong. I'm not saying Virgo is weak. Virgo certainly is not weak. But the demands is something, the demanding nature of Virgo, or to give or receive, is always sometimes a crutch in their lives. And sometimes in life, you just have to let things unfold and flow. And that can be very hard for Virgo 2s. It can be hard for all Virgos or a Virgo planet to just let it, like the Beatles said, let it be. Very hard. And the universe right now with some of these aspects are helping all of us to be less rigid. We all have areas in our chart where we're rigid. Everybody does. No matter what your sun, no matter if you're what sign you are, there's somewhere in your chart that we're going to be a little too fixed in our ideas or our ways of being, and we need to change it up. We need to move around, need to loosen up a little bit. And the planetary aspects are making sure that's going to happen, especially with Uranus and Gemini. So the demands, Virgos, really for your mental and physical health, especially digestive health. Virgo is very much tied to digestive health. Give yourself a break. Virgos, give yourself a break. Doesn't mean be lazy. Of course, lazy is different depending on who you ask, right? And lazy can be attributed to, you can take the word lazy out of an equation in someone's life. If someone has focus issues, ADD, ADHD, neurodivergence, if any of us have any of that, even a little bit, your plans and motivation are there, and your smarts are there, and your impetus is there, but the focus may not be there on a given day. So then you may be perceived as lazy because that day you're like, sort of thing. So that's where Virgo can be incredibly hardworking, but also very low key and can kind of overthink. So Virgos they don't like that preference of demands. That's going to cause Virgo to overthink. Why is this person giving me so much pressure? What's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Am I not a strong enough worker? Am I not delivering the goods? Am I not dotting my, am I not crossing my T's and dotting my I's? Did I not do spell check? That sort of thing. And this is especially true for Mercury Virgo people. Oh my gosh. I've seen this so many charts. It's dizzying. It's dizzying. Sometimes I wish astrology wouldn't work. Sometimes I wish I would say, okay, you know what? This is a new chart with this placement. I'm going to look at this person. I'm going to read for them. And I'm not going to get the same energy that I did from those 10 other people. And it's like, oh, okay. I know one person that is Mercury in Virgo, square Saturn in Gemini. Woo! Very clever. And a good mindset for technical work and manual work too. Hands, Virgo, Gemini, Gemini, Virgo, Mercury, hands. Saturn is work. But the square from Mercury to Saturn, the overthinking and the caution and the deliberation, holy cow. And Virgo, for the most part, Virgo wants to be polite. In their mind, Virgo might be saying, Virgo might have a very, very strong, sharp mindset about something, but they might not say it. But they might just play the polite way, or just the low-key way, sort of thing. But they'll have a strong, sharp. Your analysis sure fits my late older brother born on the 9th. Yay, Karen! I know you mentioned that last year. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I've known a lot of Virgos this week, and it's just amazing. And I will say, from a male perspective, Virgo women are incredibly alluring. There's something about Virgo women that are extremely, more so than Scorpio. I would give Virgo the top for women. I think Virgo is the number one. Virgo female is the most puzzling, enigmatic, and kind of sensual women. Even just with average looks, there's just something about that Earth Virgo maiden energy that's wonderful. And the thing is, with all of this, I know I'm being kind of negative here, but Virgo's one of these signs that, if Virgo is secure and loves you and is dutiful and connected to you, Virgos have a purity of soul. Like whatever they do is very, very pure. That's why they're so demanding, because they know that if they let down their guard and give you that friendship or give you that love and let you in, they let you into their puzzling, mercurial, witty mind that's serious and helpful, that's humorous but critical. That in 1 minute will tease you and make you feel so comfortable because they're low-key and humble. And then the next minute cuts you to shreds when you didn't do the project right. That's Virgo. Especially Virgo 2s. That's it. And, you know, I had an acupuncturist once, I think I mentioned, that was born this week. And she was sweet, polite, and an amazing acupuncturist. But she had such a perfectionistic streak that she would freeze. She would like literally freeze on certain days. If she had too few clients, she was bored and she didn't feel productive. Then she'd have a day where there was too many clients and she hated that. So she didn't like the demands, but she didn't like it to be too quiet. And she said, I'm really hard to satisfy. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I wonder, serious yet humorous. So you can look this up. Just go into Google or whatever browser you want to use, Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Brave. Type in Virgo comics, Virgo comedians, or comedians, whatever. There's so many Virgo comedians. Now, why is that? Is that just because there happens to be more Virgos in the world, statistically? Maybe. That happen to have a propensity for comedy. And of course, all these Virgos have different charts. They have different moon signs, their Mercury, their rising. But a lot of them have more than just Sun and Virgo as well. I think Sebastian Maniscalco, I think he's a Virgo. Adam Sandler's a Virgo. There's a lot. But the interesting thing about that is I think, you know, Virgo comedians are self-deprecating. And many comics talk about, women included, they talk about their insecurities and their problems from childhood, and they incorporate all this mess, all their messiness from life, and they put that into stories, and that's why it's funny, because people can relate to it, and it's true. So again, the everyday man or everyday woman, that's Virgo, and that's probably why they make such great comics. Because if you like a comic, like, I don't know about you, but if I'm watching a comic, I don't want the comic to be too over the top dramatic, but I don't want them to be too boring either. I like them to deliver funny, but I like the realistic stuff, the day-to-day stuff that we all deal with is funny. You know, about standing in a drive-through or getting your name on a Starbucks cup. You know, just things like that. Those silly little things that comics talk about, the everyday things that really are funny or annoying. That's another thing. Virgos pick up really, really well on everything in their environment that's wrong, that's annoying, and that annoys all of us. And then they can translate that into a paragraph or an essay, and that's why they can deliver that. So Virgos are shy, but they're incredible communicators. They don't share a lot, but they are wonderful disseminators of information. So I think you're probably getting, you know, halfway through. You can see why Virgo, to me, is the most puzzling sign. Now, if a Virgo person born this week has a lot of different kinds of signs that opens them up, or they just happen to grow up in a more touchy-feely family where there was more emotional expression or more, you know, more affection, more love, and they're more comfortable with that, or their sun is in like a firehouse. This Virgo person's sun was in the 1st or 5th. They're going to be a lot more. They're going to shine more. So that would be different. But they'd have to have, you know, some fire there, some water, possibly Scorpio or Cancer would be a sextile. So that would be nice for Virgo. Virgos tend to have good friendships with Cancer and Scorpio, and sometimes even Pisces. But that's an interesting thing. But serious yet humorous, and depends on the day that you get them. And Virgos are very, like, they're very particular about what they think is funny, and then they're particular about what they want to be serious about. So that there's a lack of flow there with Virgo planets, because when it comes to doing things well and taking things seriously, there's certain things they're not going to laugh about because they want to take it seriously. But then there's other things that they want to be goofy about. And there's just no other sign like Virgo that straddles the goofy and the serious like they do. Capricorns are serious but have a good sense of humor, but I wouldn't call Capricorns goofy. I wouldn't say that for Taurus either. Taurians can have a good body sense of humor, and can be either difficult or really sweet. But again, I don't see Taurus as goofy. But there's a goof. I don't know how to explain it. Like there's just, it's like those oddball comedies from, what is it, the 30s and 40s and 50s. I don't know how many of those men and women must have had major Virgo in their chart. And this also goes for the Virgo singers. Like Virgo singers, especially the males, they tend to be a little more on the outcast or nerd physicality. Doesn't mean they are, and they may embrace that. But there's something of an outcast mentality there, where Virgos may not be fully understood, and they take all that, they digest all that, assimilate all that. That's another thing with Virgo. Virgos are like overeaters, but not for eating, for life. So think about this. Any Virgo, especially people born this week, I'll clean this up for TV, because I didn't restrict it to over 18. But Virgo's mind screw, that's the clean version, mind screw everything. So that's the best way to understand Virgo. And I'm not saying that's positive or negative. They mind screw everything. So that's Virgo. Virgo's the overeater of boom, boom, boom. Oh my God, what's that? What? I got to get in there. Oh, that's Virgo. So there's always, the mind always has to get into something, get into that cage, get into that cave and figure what is going on. Why is it dark? Why is it light? And they can't stop. So if a Virgo born this week also has Mercury in Virgo, if they're double Virgo and they're Sun and Mercury, it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful for some things. And they're probably going to be wonderful in work, very successful, most likely. But in their personal relationships, that could go another way, especially if they have double Virgo. I knew one woman that was a triple Virgo. Very, very nice, very, very nice person. Very nice, but very hard to get along with. And I remember several people telling me that. Very sweet, polite, but just something about her is incredibly hard to get along with. Not easygoing at all. So, but that may be Virgo saying, hey, take me or leave me, thorns and all. This is kind of me. But underneath all that armor, underneath that serious, guarded, is a person that really wants appreciation and love, and again is sensitive and thoughtful. We forget about Virgo is one of the most thoughtful signs underneath. So it's a pain with the earth signs, right? Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn. Gosh, a lot of signs don't have the patience to break through those barriers, especially with the earth signs, because the earth signs, it takes so darn long to bring it out and to get that trust. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but it just takes a long time. And sometimes there's not enough time in life. Sometimes you just have to kind of, I talked about a couple weeks ago, I talked about revealing and sharing. Not everything, but in life, when you continuously don't reveal or share anything with other people, you really miss out on relationships. You just miss out. So sure, you could say there's power, and I don't reveal anything about my life to anybody, and there's power in that. Sure, there is power in that, and you're protecting yourself and you're authentic. That's great. But when you're not sharing or revealing, you're really, really missing out on the more subtle aspects of other people, and you may be missing out on other people's gifts by not showing that you're willing to receive something from them because you're giving something, kind of thing. So that's also a lesson for Virgo Virgo is a lesson is to share, and not just to be witty and humorous and share by saying, hey, you know what? Oh, your shower's broken. I'll fix it for you. Oh, you need a ride to the store. You know what? Let me go. You know what? Let me do that. I'll get the cake for the party. Um, acts of service is a love language, right? In the love languages, um, acts of service is one of them. So for some couples and spouses, doing an act of service to the other spouse, it deposits a love coin in their bank. That's not my love style, but for some people that is. And so it's not necessarily physical affection. It's not necessarily telling them that they're wonderful and beautiful and thoughtful. They want, if they say, oh, I don't want to go pick up the pizza and go to the dry cleaners, but you do it, and they're like, oh my God, that was wonderful. And then you do it again, and their bank starts, their service bank. So that's kind of Virgo's love language. Whether they give that or receive that, they're very into acts of service. But it would be important for Virgo to incorporate the opposite Pisces here, Pisces 2, and volunteer. And I don't mean volunteer at your local like food pantry or a library. I mean volunteer. Volunteer yourself. Volunteer once in a while with someone you love and trust, something about yourself or your struggles or your anxieties. There's no Virgo planet in a chart that doesn't overthink. Unless it has really, really calming, sweet aspects and isn't configured in any intense way in a chart, which is possible, unlikely though, the Virgo planet is not going to overthink. The overthink mode is kind of there. Now, in some cases, that's a good thing. You know, there might be certain jobs or hobbies or projects where that is going to help the success. You know, there's a lot of rappers in the hip hop industry. Again, there's tons of rappers that are Virgos. Why? Why are Virgos so good at rap? Why are Virgos so good with words like Geminis? Why are Gemini and Virgo people so good with words? If Mercury wasn't their ruler, which is, you know, Hermes and the messenger, it's truly amazing. I know a person that has no Virgo planets, but he has a stellium in the 6th house, which is the Virgo house. So he doesn't have Virgo planets or rising, but he has them in the 6th house. So his planets, all his planets are brought about in a Virgo-like way. And he works like a dog. He'll get into a project and he'll work like crazy. But he doesn't have the same perfectionism that he would if that were a stellium in Virgo. That would take on a more perfectionistic vibe because it's the actual Virgo planets. But having it in the 6th house is the 6th house. It's the house of work and service. So he puts all his other energy into the 6th house, and then that comes about in a Virgo manner. So we have Patrick O'Hearn. He does New Age music, amazingly pure and precise music. Dolores Riordan, I mention her every year. She was from the Cranberries, and she has one of the most beautiful, pure voices, especially Irish voices, in alternative music, pop music. Absolutely beautiful. So Virgo 2s, are you mixed up or precision? Well, Virgo's both. Virgos are both. And this also goes for the opposite, which is Pisces. Pisces people, as we know, can be sort of disorganized and they go with the flow a little too much and may not have systems in place or building blocks on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to kind of meet their responsibilities and meet their goals. So when you look at Virgo Pisces polarity, they both meet their goals in different ways. But they can be mixed up because Virgo can't incorporate that Pisces creativity. Virgos can be creative, although that's not going to be it's not going to be their main mode. Their mode is sensation. They may feel it out in an earthy way, not like in a Cancerian way, not in a water sign way, but they're going to feel how with their mind. Does this make sense to me? I'm a rapper. I'm writing a verse. Do these rhymes make sense to me? Is it funny? Am I going for something sharp and funny, or am I going for something that's street and that is realistic of what I went through, what I suffered, or something that's realistic to the times in terms of politics or everyday life? That's what Virgo's great at. Virgos are masters at that. So are they mixed up or precise? Well, Virgos are both, and they can be both. And Benjamin Orr, or Ben Orr, he's the former lead singer of the Boston, Massachusetts rock group The Cars. The Cars are a big group, and you had Rick Ocasek, and Ben Orr was the other guy. But Ben Orr was the Virgo that was he was the secret sauce behind The Cars. Rick Ocasek, who married a Polina Porzakova, a model, he got all the attention because he was the frontman. But Ben Orr was the real front person in the background. He was pulling all the strings, played bass, wrote a lot of the songs, had a wonderful, beautiful voice, pure voice. And he helped write a song called All Mixed Up. The Cars have a song called All Mixed Up. Just amazing, amazing stuff. So Virgos will surprise you on any given day. And so that's how Virgo's mutable. So that's how Virgos differ greatly from your fellow earth signs of Capricorn or Taurus. Capricorn and Taurus, they're not going to change that often, nor do they want to. But Virgos can stay the course, and they can be persistent, but they're also going to mix things up and change things as they go to refine and correct and help and serve. Like I said at the beginning. Refine, correct, help, and serve. That's what they're going to do. It's what they always do. So think about any Virgo person you know. There's no Virgo person. If you meet someone that's not like that, please, I dare you, comment to me and tell me I'm wrong. You will not meet a Virgo 2, especially a Virgo 2 person that's not helpful. Now, they may not be the nicest person. They might be critical. They might hurt your feelings. They might not be an emotional, touchy-feely, warm person. But they will be helpful. I've never known a Virgo not to be helpful if you ask. And Virgos that are in the health field, which is wonderful for Virgos, herbalists, acupuncture, chiropractor, physical therapist, occupational therapy, guarantee if you went in your state and looked at all the birthdays, well, there would be so many earth signs in particular, I think, but a lot of Virgos. Physical therapy, you'd probably get a lot of Taurus. But yeah, there'd be a lot of Virgo energy in the herbalism, holistic healers, that sort of thing. That's the interesting thing about Virgo 2s too, is they're very sensible and practical and logical, but they're open to the healing. They're open to those healing arts. And that's kind of the maiden with the shaft of wheat, where the maiden is picking the shaft of wheat and picking what's necessary. This is burnt grass. This is green grass. This one is okay. This one's burnt. This one's fresh. So that's Virgo. And so to piggyback on when I talked about that Virgo woman who I had, who her ex-husband was a Virgo, if I was reading for a Virgo person, I would not recommend them marrying another Virgo person. I wouldn't tell them no, because, that's not ethical. But I would strongly say, depending on what's the rest in the charts, look at the Venus and Mars. But so be careful, because what are your standards and what are your to-be fiancé standards? And can you sync with those? Virgo is adaptable, but not necessarily flexible. See the difference? Gemini's flexible with the Mercury. Virgos are not always flexible. Virgos can adapt, but yet be rigid. This is also true for Virgo rising people. Very helpful and polite and urbane and humane, but with a dash of rigidity and critical nature. And especially when they're pushed or made demands on, they can snap back with a kind of a sharp tongue. But they'll usually do it in a kind of a low-key, quiet way, but kind of put you in your place kind of way. They won't get too emotional about it. So Pisces 2 is the volunteer. And Pisces 2 and Virgo 2, that polarity is tough to integrate. But they would be wise to, Virgo 2s would be wise to integrate the Pisces 2 soulfulness. Pisces 2 in 6 months, very soulful. And again, it depends on the project, whether that's positive or negative. Pisces can over-identify with the soulfulness. Over-identify. Virgo, overthink. Pisces, over-identify. Neither's good, right? Neither's balanced. So Pisces Virgo polarity, really hard. It's a hard polarity for them, those signs to balance, and those planets. Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, he was the one that did all the music work for Annie Lennox. Very enigmatic, mysterious figure in music. Not as much is known about him, but he's kind of he's been behind the scenes, the master behind the scenes of many productions. Hugh Grant, the British actor, and Hugh's interesting because he's usually, back in the days, known for his charming romantic movies, like About a Boy. What was that other movie? British Christmas movie. I can't think of it. But anyways, he's in that. He was also in a movie called The Heretic from last year, where he plays this kind of older, creepy role, which he does really well. And his role in his house are puzzles. He's playing a twisted person that's obsessed with puzzles. And I put on my thumbnail tonight, puzzles. So Virginia Madsen's one of my favorite Virgo actresses, not to mention how beautiful she is, with her Virgo vibe and her Virgo energy. She's my all-time favorite actress, even though she's not a top level. She's not a Meryl Streep. She's not a Kate Blanchett. She's not a Nicole Kidman, or even Kathy Bates, or she's not top level, or even some of the older actresses. She's not on that level, but she always had kind of that Virgo glamorous and kind of interesting mix of sweetness and strength in her roles, and very sensual, which is thumbs up. So fixed stars. So Virgo degrees born this week. One is at 11, is Zosma, which is sort of it can be an unhappy star, according to what I was reading. And this is a Saturn and Venus influence. I don't see that as that degree. I don't see that as unhappy literally. I think what that means is the second decanate here, which is Saturn, but this star is also Saturn and Venus, is, again, it's just overdoing or overthinking that critical, analytical bent that Virgo 2s have. So if they're overdoing that, that can cause unhappiness because they're never satisfied. So the lack of satisfaction. Coxa is 13. That's a stronger star. That's also Saturn and Venus. So obviously in this constellation of Virgo, we're having a Saturn and Venus influence from the constellation, and the Decan is co-ruled by Saturn. So a lot of Saturn influence there. And strength, according to some astrologers and texts, there can be prophetic ability with the middle degree Virgo 2s. I think Virgo 2s make good healers. They can make good mediums or psychics. Very good tarot. I'm sure very good tarot, sharp tarot readers. They can believe in it. They can tune into it. Or I should say they can tune into being prophetic or predicting, and yet not truly believe. They're not sacrificing or submitting their whole energy to it. That's Virgo can be a little more detached about it, whereas Pisces would put more soul into it and may blur the lines and not protect themselves as much. But Virgo would protect themselves. So maybe prophetic. And Mizar is 15 degrees of Virgo in the constellation, which is a tough star. Tough in terms of strength. Saturn and Venus again. And, the glyph of Virgo and the sign of Virgo in Latin, it just means virgin and maiden, which is interesting. And I think I mentioned last week that there's an asteroid, or in the mythology, called Vulcan. So some astrologers assign Vulcan as a co-ruler or even the new ruler of Virgo, and that kind of gives a new level of understanding to some of the puzzling aspects of Virgo. But what's interesting is I know a lot of Virgo moons as well. A lot of Virgo moons. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 family members that have Virgo moons that I know about, and then I know 2, 3. I know several others in our circle. I've known so many Virgo moons, probably more than Sun. So the Virgo moon is different. It's not well placed, and it's not placed in a very strong way either. It's emotionally analytical, but the Virgo moon person is incredibly dutiful, thoughtful, and puts a lot of energy into doing things that are correct and doing things well and doing things that are right. They like things to be right. So they don't waste Virgo moons don't waste a lot of emotional energy on people or things that are fake or that don't have value. So that's the upside and real plus. The downside is the analyzing, the ability to dissect emotions and feelings and taking the joy out of relationships or taking the joy out of life. That's a big lesson for Virgo planets, is to not cut so sharp and dissect things to where you're taking the joy out of the relationship. Very true for Virgo Venus people. Virgo Venus people can be so loving and caring and dutiful in a quiet way and very dependable, but that critical streak does them in. And I think that's why a lot of Virgo Venus people end up getting famous, because they put all that love energy into, you guessed it, work. Virgos have to love work. Virgos love work and work to love. They work. It's like work, love, love, work. It's all tied. I think it's all tied in the same. It's all in the same bow for Virgo, especially Virgo Venuses and the Mars Virgo person, which is energy. They're just going to overdo and try to perfect everything they do. But they are incredibly helpful. I know a couple men with Virgo Mars that are not Sun and Virgos. They just have Virgo Mars, and they're willing to help friends. Like at a moment's notice, they'll just help you. They won't ask any questions. They won't complain. They'll help, or do a project or something. A dump run. Mars and Virgo person, boom, done. So, the upsides. But there's a lot of energy with the Virgo 2 energy. There's a lot of balance that's needed there between being critical and taking things too serious as far as their demands and their goals. So let's look at, let's see. Let me share my chart here. Let's look at the aspects. It's almost 8 o'clock. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully you can see that. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So here we have the transit, August 30th, 2025. This was New York time, this was an hour ago. So here we have the sun at 7 of Virgo. Now, Mercury's entering Virgo in just a few days on the 3rd. So we're going to have the sun and Mercury in Virgo, and then Mercury will have a sun-Mercury conjunction in Virgo. And so there'll be a lot of strong Virgo energy in the next 2 weeks. And of course, this Mercury is not retrograde. Let's see. So October 5th. No, I'm sorry. October. Okay. All right, that's right. We're going into Virgo, and then Mercury and Libra on the 19th. Okay, so for September, Mercury stays direct and goes through 2 signs. So it's going to fly through Virgo, and then it's going to go right into Libra. Okay, and then as we get into fall, we're going to start Librans, or Libra planets are going to start feeling a lot of energy, especially with this Mars in Libra that started. And we're right in the middle here, and Mars isn't retrograde. So we have the Mercury, Venus not retrograde, Jupiter is direct, Uranus direct, Pluto, of course, retrograde. And then the biggest thing that I see most astrologers talking about is, of course, now I feel like about 6 to 8 months ago, this is what we were all talking about, maybe even close to a year ago, was all this Pisces going into Aries and then everything being retrograde. So here it's just a kind of a hot mess. Saturn is going to go back into Pisces for months. So Saturn it's almost there. Here it's at 0 of Aries. So as I mentioned the last couple of weeks, anyone with Saturn in Pisces, but mostly someone that has a late degree Saturn, like 25 to 29, almost Aries. Not so much. If you're an early Saturn Pisces person, like 5 degrees or 7 or 10, you've already done your Saturn return. So for those of you that are, 31, 61, and going on, and 91, the people, those 31, 61, and 91-year-olds that are alive, you're done for now with your Saturn return. People that are turning 30, 60, and 90, coming up on 6 years, so 36, 66, and 96 individuals, if you know anybody born those years, they're turning a big birthday next year, 30, 60, or 90. They are having just a little hint residue of a last Saturn hit as it goes back to Pisces, but it's not a direct hit, so it's not major. It's just a little bit of residue, and then they're going to have their big birthday. So there's no major lessons for them. A person that's turning 30 next year is basically done with their Saturn return anyways, as long as they've been doing most of the major work this year for being 29. Same with someone that's 59 right now, and same with someone that's 89 right now. They're all finishing up that Saturn cycle. Now, so 4, 5, 6. So someone born on the 7 years, 37, 67, or 97, they turned an 8 number. Next year, they're on the 9. So they're turning 29, 59, or 89 next year. They have another year and a half to finish up the Saturn return, as Saturn goes back into Pisces and then goes back into Aries. And then, let's see, 6. Yeah. And then the other years, like someone born in 1968, someone that will be 58 next year. Is that right? 58. They have someone born in 68 would have Saturn in Aries, so they're going to have their Saturn return. They're just feeling and starting residue here. So anyone with any of these or any Aries planets that are early, they're getting that conjunction. So even if someone had an Aries rising around here ruling the chart, that's going to be very significant in terms of these planets. Saturn being a heavy Sirius planet, and Neptune being more illusion and kind of lighter and more glamorous, which can fog things up a little bit. The nodes retrograde. Like I said, Pluto's retrograde, and that's about it. And then, of course, tonight, well, we have Sag up here with the moon. We have this Leo energy here where there's a lot, still Leo. But there's no major Aries energy, even though we have this retrograde Aries here. And then, so for a few months, when Saturn goes back into Pisces, we only have Neptune in Aries, which isn't a major influence. It's generational. Although, for early Aries people, if someone's born right on the spring equinox, if someone's born right at spring, their Neptune's going to be conjuncting their sun. So that could either make things very creative or make things very foggy for them. So that would depend. And then here's an Aquarius, no major Gemini. And of course, we have Mars, the Mars in Libra here. So, but for Virgo people, Virgos right now, you have it intercepted here. So every Virgo person, as I talk about every month, you're getting your solar return, which should enhance your health. It should make things nice and clear. For your energy should feel clear and sensible, which Virgos like that. Virgos like things to be neat, not too messy, especially mentally. And also, hopefully, if you know a Virgo that suffers from any anxiety, overthinking, or digestive problems, which Virgo planets have a tendency, especially Virgo moons, have a tendency to suffer due to some of those, the overexertion of Virgo. I guess that's a better way to say it. Overexertion. Whereas Pisces can lay back and flow too much, Virgo can overexert. So one's too lax and one is too working too hard. So find that balance there. And of course, no major Pisces, just this outer Pisces. So Virgo getting your solar return. Mercury's going to go into Virgo. And I want to mention, because I was talking about people that I know that have Mercury in Virgo, at least Mercury in Virgo is the only placement in astrology that is the best placement, especially for me. The best placement for Virgo is Mercury in Virgo. So you'll notice if someone has a Virgo Mercury, especially if there's good aspects, they may overthink things, but they'll also tend to lend a very helpful and sensible perspective on almost anything. So you can have really good communication, good talks with Mercury Virgo people, because they don't get too emotional. It's not too egotistical. They won't fight with you over ego issues. They don't really like the drama. And they're helpful and sensible. Yes, they're critical, and yes, they find fault. But in Mercury, it works well because it's its own planet. So if you come across anybody with a Mercury Virgo, it will work well. For the most part, it will work well. And because I've known Virgo people that have the Mercury in Leo, and they tend to be critical and a little more argumentative because Mercury's in a fire sign. So there's more of a tendency to be more argumentative. With Sun and Mercury, both in Virgo, their argumentative nature is a little more muted. It's there, but it's more muted and it's not as direct. So that'll be a good thing. So all Virgo people born this month should feel that good energy, especially with Mercury being direct right now. And then Venus in Leo, that goes into Virgo on September 20th. So as we're getting close to Libra and leaving the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, going into Libra, Venus will be in Virgo, which not the greatest placement for love, but it will be a good time for all of us to be dutiful. Think about where do we need to be dependable? Who in our life needs us to live up to our duty and be dependable? That's Venus in Virgo. Usually very dependable and dutiful, but not always loving. Interesting thing. Well, that's part of the interesting thing about the mutable signs too. The mutable signs are very dual, and they can have these kind of contrasting sides to them at the same time. And especially true for Pisces and Virgo, which are yin or more introverted signs. It's kind of harder for them to balance that and to express some of those better qualities sometimes in personal interactions or friendships. All right, let's see. Let me see if I can share really quick. All right, hold on a second here. Okay, I think I changed it. So I think you guys and gals can see Freddie Mercury's chart. Now, no one seems to have Freddie Mercury's correct time from Queen. So he's September 5th, 46, from Zanzibar, Tanzania. Tanzania. Wow. Probably from imagine a little boy from a village in a deeper part of the world that becomes one of the best operatic rock singers of all time. Just amazing. Like, how often does that happen in history? 1 in 1,000 years, maybe? Amazing. So he was September 5th, 46, which marks him as a Virgo too. And Freddie had, now some people cast him as having Leo rising. So I'm not going to go by this Virgo rising because I don't know that to be true. But he did have Sun and Mercury in Virgo. So this is what I was talking about. So someone like Freddie, who had Sun and Mercury in Virgo, not conjunct, by the way. A conjunction would have to be an orb that's like 2 to 3 to 4 degrees, really, really close. These are about 8.5 degrees apart, which is a little too far. You could give it a loose conjunction. But Freddie had Mercury in Virgo, which is well placed, as I mentioned, and it's not quite opposing this Mars outer asteroid here, but it gave him a precision. I mean, the way Freddie sings, I don't love all of Queen's music. In fact, some of it is almost too sterile and almost too perfect for me. When you're listening to it with the music and the way Freddie sings, he's so precise, it's almost too perfect. And I need a little more mess or a little more emotion into it for me to enjoy it. But his talent is unmatched. And of course, his Sun ruled by Mercury in Virgo, and Mercury in Virgo ruled by Mercury in Virgo. So the Virgo is very prominent with him. No major Taurus, and as far as we know, no major Capricorn, a late degree Sagittarius moon. And like Barry Gibb, look at that. I talked about Barry Gibb last week with all his Virgo. All his Libra. Virgo being having all this charm and this creativity for art and music. What is it with Virgo and Libra in the chart? Wow, amazing. Beauty. There's also an eye for detail, but an eye for the aesthetic and an eye for beauty. To see it and express it. And this really helped Freddie. Mars in Libra, his energy. Venus, his love nature in Libra. Jupiter, expansion in Libra. And then the outer planet, Neptune in Libra. So 2 major planets and 2 outer planets all in Libra. Amazing. So he had a higher score in Libra than he does in Virgo. So he was strongly Virgo and Libra, with a little hint of fire here. Maybe he had Leo rising. We don't know. Maybe he had Virgo rising. He seemed like more of a Leo rising to me because he had such a magnetism and he got to such a high level in music as a front person of a band. Even a shy person, to be able to want to have 1 million people look at you that much, you have to have a need in your mind saying, look at me, kind of thing. These are all outer planets here. So Uranus was in Gemini. I talked about in previous live streams about Uranus being in Gemini, and here he had it. His Saturn was in Leo, direct, and Pluto was in Leo. Interesting. Again, that's a loose conjunction, kind of far apart at 8 degrees, but somewhat of a conjunction. This is a conjunction, his Uranus and his node. So that's interesting. And this would indicate his node in Sag is here in the 4th, but it's not shown. This would indicate that in this life, he would incarnate and he would gain strength by being the messenger and communicating with his voice and his words here, and being less Sagittarian, possibly less self-oriented or less single-minded, less fiery, and more airy, social, more humanitarian, and to express with his words and his voice, which he did. So the node in Gemini might have a lesson to use your voice and words to heal and to express. So Gemini nodes would most likely have that. Now, of course, anyone else born in 46 would also have the node in Gemini too. So there's a lot of other people that would have that. It'll be interesting to see how people use that in their life. But So other than the Virgo, not a lot of strong Earth, not a lot of fire, outer Leo, and no Aries here, which is interesting because he was the leader of a group. But he did have Mars in a cardinal sign. And let's see. Cancer. Where's the Cancer? No Cancer. Interesting, because his Mars, I would have thought his Mars would have had a strong aspect to another cardinal sign for drive, but not necessarily. Wow. Sextile Pluto. That's very good for positive. Freddie had a lot of positive, loving energy. I mean, he had a lot of charisma and warmth. And Mars sextile Pluto, he was really able to express that warmth in a very powerful, positive way. That was amazing. Mars sextile Pluto. Yeah, he had a gift with that. He had an absolute gift with that. And then he also had Mars trine Uranus. Okay, there we go. Oh, his Mars was beautifully aspected. No struggle there. Freddie had no struggle to express his air sign qualities there with his energy, with his love, and with the masses because of Mars Uranus. That's how he's able to match the masses. And his Mars is also trying this node about coming into the lifetime to express with his voice and his words. So Freddie had it. He was born with that. When he got the training, he perfected his training, but then that was because of the Virgo. But all the natural charisma and beautiful, kind of loving, pleasant energy. He had a lot of pleasant, sanguine energy here. I think Freddie Mercury was really into animals, and I think particularly he was a huge cat person. Because if you look up Queen and Freddie's pictures, there's a lot of pics of him with cats in his estate. So that's really sweet. So he was a big cat person. So I'm trying to figure out where that shows in the chart. Virgos can be very much pet people. Virgos can have a nice, gentle way in communication with pets. But of course, I don't know his true sixth house. These house cusps are not correct. So I have no idea what the house placements are, and I can't really go deeper with that to try to discern that. But very interesting. So just like Barry Gibb, like we looked at last week, the Virgo and the Libra energy combined. And the air sign energy in a chart here, it really helps Virgos to express. Virgos might be able to express with their little group and be incredibly communicative and informative, and they're always smart and thoughtful about what they do, but they may not always be able to translate that to a bigger group or to the masses. But with all the Libra there, that really helped. So that's really interesting, really cool. All right, well, thank you so much. We're almost an hour and 20 minutes in. I see we're only down to one person, so thank you. I know it's been a long talk. So if you catch me on the replay, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And for now, I'm keeping my Carolyn says very thorough analysis of Virgo. Thanks. You're very welcome. Thank you so much to my number 1 and 2 fans, my top fans there. I really appreciate all the support, and the channel continues to grow. Right now, for the last 2 months, it's been all United States viewers. So thank you to viewers. Of course, I'm here in the States. So thank you to the viewers in the US. And I hope to gain some of those viewers from some of the other countries like Pakistan and India and China that I had 6 months to a year ago. Hopefully you guys and gals can come back with some new content. So if you have any questions or comments, please, you can leave a comment in this live stream box or after the replay. And also you can comment in my latest cusp video. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. Everyone have a great week and enjoy the Labor Day weekend. All right, be safe.